Aviation has a big part to play in emissions, and our use of sustainable aviation fuel was accounted for a little more than 50% of what we were able to reduce in 2025. Our fuel team has been very diligent and very active in finding and securing SAF supplies over the last 3 years, let's say. We are now purchasing these SAF allotments well ahead of when we are going to use them.
Welcome to Sustainability in the Air, the world's first podcast dedicated to sustainable aviation. I'm your host, Shashank Nigam, the CEO of Simplifying. On this show, I speak with aviation leaders, innovators, and policymakers driving real action, separating the signal from the noise to spotlight what's truly moving the industry forward. The same focus that is at the heart of our new book, Sustainability in the Air, Volume 2. In it, Dirk Singer and I take stock of how far the industry has come and how far we still need to go. With the global carbon budget potentially running out by 2032, the clock is ticking. But the most promising solutions today aren't just environmentally sound, they are economically superior as well. From SAF and contrail mitigation to direct air capture, the book offers a practical roadmap for aviation's journey to net zero. Get your copy today. Link in the show notes. My guest today is Robert Hyslop, Executive Vice President of Global Aviation at DHL, where he oversees one of the world's largest dedicated air cargo networks. Under his leadership, DHL has rapidly scaled its use of sustainable aviation fuel, becoming one of the largest SAF buyers globally and integrating it across both its fleet and customer offerings. In this conversation, we explore how DHL is moving from pilot projects to large-scale deployment, what it takes to triple SAF usage in a single year, and how cargo leaders like DHL are balancing cost, customer demand, and long-term decarbonization targets in a volatile fuel market. Robert, it's a pleasure to be speaking with you after knowing about DHL's efforts, interviewing some of our executives on stage over the last few years. Finally, we get a lowdown into DHL's sustainability strategy. Robert, why do you at DHL go above and beyond when it comes to sustainability?
First of all, Shashank, thank you for the invitation. I appreciate very much the opportunity to share some of the DHL background in sustainability and our use of sustainable aviation fuel. So many thanks for that. To answer your first question there, I think it really is a matter of tone at the top. You know, our executive leadership all the way up to Dr. Tobias Meyer, who is our CEO and head of the group company, has a very strong affinity and affiliation to sustainability. It's actually one of our four core pillars in our business. Sustainable operations, sustainable products are part and parcel of what we do in DHL. So I really would say that this all starts with a tone at the top and a tone that is very sustainably focused.
Now, this is great that it's coming from the top, from the executives. But many organizations, largest airlines in the world, they have sustainability as a key corporate pillar. But almost all of them are just meeting the bare minimum that the government requires or ensuring that they do not get hit with some fines. But DHL is truly going above and beyond. Where does that motivation come from?
Well, I think it's the option or opportunity that we see to create a differentiation among some very mature competitors in our side of the business, whether you're looking in my division, the express division, of course, FedEx, UPS, and others. And in the freight forwarding division, there are many large freight forwarders, as you know. Emerged or appeared that there was an opportunity to get ahead especially in respect of sustainable aviation fuel, but also in terms of, you know, sustainable operations, efficiency of operations, and also infrastructure, the way we build our buildings, the way we want to use sustainable processes inside of those facilities. So really, I think there was a opportunity and understanding that we could have a jump here and we could create some differentiation. And of course, Shashank, in our business, we're always trying to create that differentiable that the customer will appreciate.
Right, right. I appreciate that perspective as well, that this can be a differentiation. Now, specifically, DHL reduced over 2 million tons of CO2 emissions last year, and SAF was playing a significant role in this. You lead the DHL Express, the aviation team. How do you chip in to reduction of these emissions?
Well, yes. So obviously, aviation has a big part to play in emissions, and our use of sustainable aviation fuel was accounted for a little more than 50% of what we were able to reduce in 2025. That, that's a real good figure. Obviously, we're starting at a base that we want to get to in 2030 and beyond, to move up to 30% or more of our emissions reduced through this way. So this is a real chance to jump at it and a real chance to get out ahead. Our fuel team has been very diligent and very active in finding and securing SAF supplies over the last 3 years, let's say. And I think what we've got here, Shashank, is some momentum. And we've got momentum carrying us, from the successes in 2024 and 2025 into the future. We are now purchasing these SAF allotments well ahead of when we are going to use them. It's really created some momentum here, which is great.
Right. And I love that you're building on this momentum, right? Because you had 3.5% SAF use in the last year, and now in 2024, and now you're up to 10%, which is almost a 3x increase. What drove this? I mean, there are no additional incentives you're availing. It's not that the mandate has suddenly gone up. You could have happily kept everyone satisfied at 3.5%. Why is it up, and how do you fulfill this target?
Well, there are a couple of things there, Shashank. I think first of all is that we were able to get in with suppliers who are reliable, able to develop a good business relationship with those suppliers all over the world, not just in Europe or in the Americas, but everywhere, and to really push ourselves to create these agreements for SAF takeoffs. It 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 really created an opportunity that we thought we got out probably a step or two ahead of others, and it allowed us to really take the lead and run ahead of it. It's really gone from, call it 3.5% up last year to 10%, and this year even more we're expecting. So we're well on our way. We understand what we have to do with the various suppliers to broaden our base and deepen our relationship, but it's going very well, thanks.
Love it. And since you mentioned suppliers, let's actually bring up the Phillips 66 agreement, where I believe it's almost 250,000 metric tons of SAF over 3 years. How do you, given how global DHL Express is, how do you select and choose suppliers globally? And how do you choose who to work with, who not to work with, how much volume to get? What takes place behind the scenes here?
So really, the procurement side of it is pretty uh, pretty simple to understand. We are looking for partners who are reliable. We're looking for partners who we believe have a long-term commitment to this, as we do, and are scaling their production in an economic way that we can take advantage of. continue to buy and continue to buy at quantities that will press down our premium over the fossil equivalent. So, we're looking for companies that share that same outlook, that same vision. They're making their investments into SAF, and they have a reliability that we can depend on as we go ahead and buy these allotments well ahead of time.
I love it. So is Phillips 66 going to be supplying a lot of this SAF in the US? Do we know, or is this being shipped to Europe or other places?
Well, it is off of a worldwide base, Shashank. So all of our suppliers, we're we're trying to achieve, a global supply and not become too dependent in one region or another. So, what we do with Philips and what we do with Neste and others should geographically cover our needs of where we consume the fuel and where our customers can book and claim. So we're looking at kind of a global process.
Right. And since you mentioned global, there's the other partnership with Malaysia Airlines, the Malaysia Aviation Group, which also will reduce, I believe, 300 tons of carbon emissions in 2026. Do you see that as a model for multiple regional partnerships?
Yeah, I think, regional partnerships are key to our overall scaling. So we have done a number of things with our partners. For example, you may have seen recently the SAF One project in Bahrain. And we also, for example, work with Cosmo Oil in Japan. And those are, let's say, regional or geographically located solutions that we're bringing up now and in the future. So, yes, the regional location to serve the region is part of the bigger picture for sure.
Got it. Got it. That does make sense given how global DHL Express operations are. You're targeting more than 30% SAF blending by 2030. How do you get from the current 10% blending to 30%? Is this more policy? Is this more technology? Is this something else? What is the barrier there?
A little bit of everything. At the moment, really, it's about securing that supply and sufficient supply and ensuring that we're working with partners who can scale their production and scale their future availabilities to us. So really, that's a very important part. Um, so there is some uncertainty around availability of the current HEFA-based substrate model after 2030. If we continue to go, we're going to go through barriers in which there may not be enough substrate to produce the SAF in the way that we use it. And that's where other technologies obviously are coming into play. As time progresses, as we mature in this, of course, we'll avail ourselves to those other sources and technologies as we go forward.
Right. Something I've been very fascinated by, Robert, is your GoGreen Plus service, which basically allows actual DHL customers to book shipments using SAF, and hence they will reduce their scope 3 emissions. How has the take up been? Has it been a lot of customers taking it, or have you had to hit barriers or resistance in this?
Well, Shashank, glad you asked. It's been phenomenal. And, I've been in the company a long time, Shashank, and I've seen, retail opportunities and, retail promotions come and go. But this one seems to have really hit a home run a couple of years ago, in which when you order a DHL shipment online, you can click a box and a certain amount of the revenue will go towards the sustainability. And you will be issued a certificate based on that. Very interesting that we've had very good take up in certain areas that you would probably guess that we had in the Nordics, in Northern Europe, for example. There was a very swift and strong take up, and then throughout other parts of Europe, but also in other areas, to our surprise, in some emerging markets, there's also been a take up of this, and obviously it costs a little more. So, where you're seeing price consciousness in overall transportation service buying in emerging markets, it's interesting to see that in some of the emerging developing markets, we see a strong take up in the GoGreen Plus product, which really surprised me. As I've said, I've been around a long, long time, Shashank, and it's very interesting to see how people understand or want to be involved in this co-investment model of abatement of sustainability. So big surprise to me for being around as long as I have that it seems like this promotional activity has really caught fire.
I'm surprised to hear this. I would have thought mature, well educated markets like Scandinavia or Germany or some parts of Europe would be up there, but you're saying new emerging markets is what's been
Yeah.
surprising you.
Well, they have been surprising us. Of course, the Nordics and the northern part of Europe is ahead in terms of revenue per overall revenue percentage, I would say. But
Right.
you might think that it would become popular in the US, and so far that's not really been the case compared to other places, emerging markets and developing markets in particular. It's been a bit of a
Right.
surprise that
Surprise.
a good surprise, a very good surprise that people have this view of sustainability and co-investment model in trying to reduce emissions. I think it really says a lot.
Right, right. No, that's very fascinating. Now, the other thing you've done, which recently caught my attention, was this deal you've done with IAG Cargo, the parent organization of British Airways and Aer Lingus and the others. This is a 5-year SAF deal, which allows them to use book and claim, right?
Yes.
How does it actually work, and how does book and claim fit into this? I'm just curious. Why would
Well,
IAG Cargo partner with DHL and
yeah.
not just do this themselves?
So this is kind of turning it around where we are the customer. And this takes a little bit of explaining about our network, Shashank. Unlike our competitors, FedEx and UPS, DHL is not one global airline. In fact, we are a number of airlines in different jurisdictions all over the world, and we kind of piece together what we call the virtual global airline. And we also knit that network together by using by far the most belly space cargo capacity of any passenger carrier that you might imagine. So every day, not only do our freighters fly our material from points all over the world, but we also put hundreds and thousands of tons of cargo in the bellies of passenger aircraft. And so it was natural with IAG, for example, that we kind of became the customer to this sustainability activity that IAG is doing. So based on that, we are a scope 3 in this case, and we're very happy that IAG is promoting this. And obviously, they're promoting it to all of their other freight customers as well. But we think that along with our SAF purchases that are a scope 1 for us, then this adjunct activity in scope 3 is marries along very nicely with what we're doing. Very happy to
Wow.
partner with IAG in that case. We obviously prefer to use our own, but in this case, where we use so much belly space of so many different carriers, then this is an attractive add-on.
Yeah, and I love how this sets a precedent for not just IAG Cargo to go to other customers. Hey, if you've got belly space within our airlines, you do this. This allows, because you're running a virtual cargo airline globally, you can go to Cathay and Qantas and others and say, hey, you know what? Can we do the same with you?
Sure, absolutely. And I think, you're seeing the blossoming of various products out there, various cargo products with all the major international airlines, let's say, are starting to develop these products for sale. Maybe IAG is a step ahead. Obviously, other European carriers have similar products out there, and I'm sure we'll avail ourselves to those because for sure, if you look in the belly of any number of those airlines, you'll find DHL cargo flying in those bellies.
Right, right. Quite amazing. Now, you're not just buying SAF, you're actually constructing a almost $300 million facility in Cincinnati at the airport there, which should be operational soon. And I'm curious, how does this infrastructure investment support your sustainability objectives?
Yeah. So, well, the major justification for the maintenance facility in Cincinnati, which is right next to our sorting hub operations, in which each night more than 60 aircraft come in and discharge their cargo to be sorted, reloaded, and then fly out in a hub and spoke method. Very similar to our competitors, very, very common in our overnight service industry. That hangar is right next door to where the aircraft park. And so the justification for the investment was that we don't have to fly the aircraft out to be maintained at a hangar somewhere else, some distance away, that we would have to fly the aircraft. And oftentimes we fly that aircraft non-revenue. In other words, it finishes its business in Cincinnati, is empty, it ferries to a maintenance facility somewhere else, is maintained, and then flies back in order to take on more cargo. So what a wasteful exercise in ferrying out to a maintenance facility and
Mm,
back. Not only is it fuel, but it's pilots, it's wear and tear on the aircraft. Obviously, a depreciation event occurs every time you cycle the aircraft and cycle the engines. So there's a lot of cost in that. And if we're able to bring the maintenance next to where the sorting hub is, or where the activity of the aircraft is, we basically save all of that. So that was the lead justification, really, in making that investment in Cincinnati. Now, along with that, Shashank, I should say that that facility is really pressing the bounds of the future in terms of being a sustainable facility to operate and to work in. In fact, my office just opened there, and the amount of power that we take from the grid versus the power that is from solar up on the roof is going to hit an inflection point in the future year or two, where we're less and less dependent on the grid and less dependent on how power is produced in the Ohio River Valley. So that's really, really good. But again, I think the headline here is, don't
mhm.
fly the airplane out to a maintenance facility some way away. Do it right here.
Yeah, that's fascinating. Remember, I grew up in Singapore, and I remember Delta Airlines 737s coming into Singapore. And I was like, wait, on the flight display, there is no 737. Delta at that time had 747s going to Narita, into the US. And I was thinking, why are these 737s coming in and from where? Turned out they were all coming in for maintenance
Yes.
at ST Engineering in Singapore,
ST.
and all the way from, yeah, ST Aero, and from Guam was where they were all flying in to get significant maintenance. So I totally see your point here coming in.
There's an economic element here where the price of the services offered in Singapore or elsewhere away from your home base
Mhm.
is got to meet a market in terms of economics with what you spend in your home market minus the fuel.
Right, right. Exactly. Still sticking on business cases, Robert. I'm very curious. We all know SAF currently carries a price premium.
Yes.
Yet DHL is, you're sticking your neck out there, you're going above and beyond. How do you justify this business case here? How do you make the business case internally to buy more expensive staff today as opposed to perhaps cheaper staff in the future when there's more of it?
Yeah. So again, I think this was tone at the top, Shashank. It was, the executive leadership saying we want to march at least a step out in front of our competitors, who I see recently are starting to awaken. That's very interesting. So it was definitely, tone at the top and leadership direction. But I think also with the GoGreen Plus solution as a product and the revenues that we're earning off of that, as people want to, let's say, co-invest in this decarbonization effort, is obviously priming the pump for us of money that we can spend to buy more SAF. So creating a virtuous cycle here of offering a product that's useful to the consumer, and then using some of the earnings off of that product to put back into the base SAF. So we're getting close to a sustainable, or let's say a virtuous circle of, we were at the kickstart stage, but I think now we're in a very good cycle where we look forward into 2027, 2028, and we're emboldened to make more commitments, more agreements on more SAF.
Yeah, yeah. No, I love it. And like you said, the momentum is there, the executive sponsorship is there. You were previously chief operating officer at Polar Air Cargo, which was a competitor
Yes.
to DHL. And you have a significant operational background before you came in to run DHL's aviation operations. What lessons are you bringing from there to this role?
Yeah, sure. Shashank, let me clarify. DHL was an investor in Polar Air Cargo, and Polar Air Cargo operated a network between Asia and the US for the express product of DHL. So while there were other freight forwarders on board that aircraft, the schedules and the economics were basically set up for DHL as the investor. That model has since changed, but while I was there, it worked quite well. And I think, we do have a strong operational mindset in terms of how sustainability, how decarbonization can roll out in our business. And me on the aviation side, one of the big things that we've done here is modernize or change the fleet. Polar Air Cargo was traditionally, specifically 747 freighter aircraft. And while 747 carries the most load, it also burns the most fuel. In the meantime, since I've left Polar Air Cargo over the years, DHL has basically fixed itself on a 777 freighter. And the 777 freighter is by far more efficient. So even though it carries 13% less payload, it burns 33% less fuel. So you pick up a huge efficiency gain there by operating this type of aircraft. So we were a network of predominantly 747s when I was at Polar Air Cargo in the late 20 teens. And now, we operate only two 747s left in our entire global network, aside 51 777s. So it's been quite a big change in terms of fleet modernization. That's definitely the big one. But also throughout our airlines, Shashank, we've developed a fuel optimization program. And the fuel optimization program has got a number of sub-elements that we're asking all of our airlines to adopt in order to use the fuel that they burn more efficiently. And that runs the gamut of pilot technique in terms of how the uses the throttles of the aircraft, how he taxis the aircraft. It goes further to how the aircraft is loaded in terms of weight and balance to make sure that we're as close as we can be to the most efficient loading and the mean aerodynamic chord of the aircraft,
Right.
upon which we should get the best fuel efficiency for that payload. And a number of other things that we're looking at in terms of obviously engine washes, clean aircraft, so on, to try and create an efficient operating environment along with an efficient fleet, along with SAF.
So all of the best of operational efficiency lessons are being applied here to ensure sustainable operations as well.
That's right. Yeah, that's right. We've got the fuel optimization program rolled out to 12 owned and partnered airlines right now. The savings in terms of the fuel burn avoidance, let's say, by better technique and by better weight and balance, so on, is between 15 and 17 million gallons per year of fuel avoidance throughout our entire fleet. Our entire fleet is about 285 aircraft that are a 737 or above.
Wow. Wow. This is fascinating to learn. I'm learning so many new things like your distributed model today already. If we look towards 2030 and beyond, let's look at medium to long term. Does SAF still remain the most critical technology, or are we thinking beyond for sustainable cargo operations, from new future aircraft technologies to hydrogen, for example?
Yeah, so I think SAF is going to be in the primary position for the foreseeable future because I think other alternative technologies to lift the type of payload that we need to lift over the distances that we do, it's very difficult to replace the kerosene molecule. Okay. The Jet A molecule is obviously blend in the SAF, of course, and as much as we can, limited a little bit by today's regulation and technology. But as we go forward, I think SAF will continue to ramp up that way. But in terms of new technology and a complete departure from current Jet A, I think we're a long ways away, Shashank, because we need to lift reliably, 40, 50 tons over a distance of 7, 8 hours of flying. And there's just no alternative that we have right now in electrical aircraft, let's say, or an aircraft with a very alternative fuel like hydrogen, which is obviously both electric and hydrogen are being tested at lower levels, at the level of maybe 1 or 2 ton or up to 3 tons of payload, and maybe over a distance of 400 to 800 nautical miles.
Mhm.
But if you want to do the big parcel business, you have to be able to get across oceans, and currently that keeps us with current fuel technologies.
Right. 400 to 800 nautical miles, or less than 1,000 nautical miles. Does that even interest you as the head of the aviation business, or is that more trucking and other ground transportation?
Sure, it does. We've had a number of initiatives in both electrical and hydrogen. But if you take a look at the displacement of carbon by those technologies, it's not much because the carbon producing aircraft, the Cessna Caravan, the ATR
Mm,
42, the ATR 72, and other small box freighters don't produce that much carbon when compared to a large scale gas turbine aircraft.
makes sense.
So I don't think it's as much a sustainability play at the lower payloads and the lower sized aircraft, as it is a play on efficiency and a play on cost, especially if we consider, Shashank, the future of unmanned aviation, unmanned aerial
Mm,
vehicles, UAVs. That could be from a feeder standpoint where we get to a DHL station with a large jet aircraft and we feed out by smaller aircraft. That could be a real step jump in terms of efficiency and cost if we go to alternative power and unmanned operations.
right. So if I take your main argument that SAF will remain the mainstay for most of DHL's operation in the coming future, is there a certain pathway that you think will play a major role? Right now, of course, it's all HEFA, HEFA SAF, use cooking oil and things like that. And then there's going to be alcohol to jet. There are other pathways like power to liquid. At what
Yes.
point do these newer pathways become serious for an operator at DHL scale?
Yeah, I think that, the developer producer of those new technologies has got to kind of prove to us in the market that they are within a certain economic range. I mean, we've already kind of stuck our heads out a little bit on buying some SAF that's more expensive than organic alternative. Now, if we look at other technologies, as you mentioned, alcohol to jet and other technologies based on perhaps not HEFA, but biomass and other things, is that there could be another step jump into economics that are even higher before we hit a scaling effect that would bring them down again. So I think wisely. Our future is really take the current technologies as far as we can to the limits of what we can currently buy and what we can currently expect as a price as they mature and become more ubiquitous, and then take a look at the future technologies to see if they can scale. Maybe, Shashank, it is a kind of sawtooth
Mhm.
view of how various technologies and the production of SAF will continue.
Right.
I think right now, we're kind of midway up the first
Hmm.
sawtooth with HEFA, and I'm
Hmm.
not sure what goes beyond that. If I can look forward to 2030 and beyond, obviously we're probably going to have to do another sawtooth of something else.
Right, right, right. No, I love that when you take leadership, when you use SAF, when you triple your usage, you actually have real lessons that the entire industry can learn from, including this sawtooth model. What gets you really excited about the future of sustainable aviation and the role that DHL is playing in it?
Well, I think in particular, what's got me very excited is that more and more customers are choosing to opt into a GoGreen Plus product that we offer and are in their own minds looking at a co-investment model towards the reduction of carbon. And so we're offering something and it's being taken up. And that gives us a lot of, a lot of opportunity to, let's call it, reinvest and keep the virtuous cycle of growth going in this area. So that's what's got me excited, really.
I love it. For the final part of this interview, Robert, we'll get to know you a bit more personally. So it's called the rapid fire round,
Yeah,
in which I'll ask you simple questions. You have to give me a one word answer or a short phrase, like, what's
sure.
your favorite airline?
DHL.
No, when you're not flying jump seat on DHL. Come on.
Well, Shashank, I'll take the airline from your home country, Singapore Airlines.
Okay.
Fantastic service, fantastic on-time performance. We've got a huge
Yes.
freighter, a joint venture with Singapore Airlines Cargo. Wonderful, wonderful joint venture that's proving to bring together, a true joint venture, Shashank, bringing together something that the other party doesn't have, right?
Right. Right.
And making more out of it. So Singapore
Love it.
Airlines,
Okay.
that was
Great
more than
choice.
one word.
Great airport.
Hong Kong.
Hong Kong. Very good choice there. Favorite city?
Gee, Hong Kong.
Okay. All right. You mulled on that one.
I lived there a long time,
You
Shashank.
lived
I
there.
lived
Yeah,
in Hong Kong
exactly.
many, many years, and I lived in Singapore for many years.
Good choice. Okay. Well, I think you like the Hong Kong hills and not the Singapore food then. More than the Singapore food. What's your favorite movie?
A Godfather one.
Okay. What do you do in your free time?
Well, actively, I'm a avid golfer, and
Okay.
I do a few projects and handyman things around the house. Like to stay busy around the house. But,
Very
the
nice.
cost of labor and the cost of having a skilled tradesman into your house to fix something has pushed me to becoming a
Can we
amateur
can we
tradesman.
find you can we find you on Task Rabbit, Robert?
That's right. Yeah.
What is something you'd like to learn?
I would like to learn yet another language, probably Chinese, in particular Cantonese. Yeah. I lived in Hong Kong a long time, and
Which ones do
Cantonese
you
is
speak?
my Cantonese is very poor.
And do you speak Mandarin?
I happened to live in Thailand a long time. I was actually first in Thailand as a Peace Corps volunteer of the U.S. government way back after college. I speak, read, and write Thai.
Wow, fantastic. Kap kun kap.
Right and right.
What and finally, what's the best advice you received, Robert?
Well, an HR manager told me years ago it's very difficult to change human adult behavior. and that you have to work on your convincing skills very much in order to be a successful leader.
Wow, I don't know about adults, but I'm struggling with my daughters, my two little kid daughters.
Yeah, no kidding.
Good one. Well, thank you, Robert. I truly enjoyed this conversation. And thank you for all the true leadership you're showing at DHL. I think the world needs more of this.
Well, no, thanks, Shashank, for the opportunity to come on and talk about sustainability, SAF use, and other things in DHL aviation. Much enjoyed our time together. If you have anything else, please just drop me a line. I'm sure we can get back
I
on
will.
and enhance or change anything you want to.
Thank
Derek,
you.
thanks for making the arrangements.
Thank you for listening to this episode of Sustainability in the Air. Aviation is one of the hardest to decarbonize industries, yet there are multiple paths to get to net zero. Awareness is key to a green future. So please give us your support to help our sustainable aviation insights reach a wider audience. You can do this by sharing this episode on your network, on LinkedIn, Twitter, or even WhatsApp. Or perhaps you might consider leaving a review on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you listen to this episode. You can start a conversation with us by writing to us at podcast@simpliflying, that's simply with an i.com. And for more content on sustainable aviation, please visit our website green.simplifying.com and join the movement. Sustainability in the Air is an original podcast by Simplifying. The show is produced by Juraj Toth in Slovakia. Dirk Singer is our Director of Sustainability, who leads research for each interviewee out of Greenwich, UK. Shubhadeep Pal is our Supervising Editor based out of Mumbai and Singapore. The articles are written by Ayushi Badola in Dehradun in India and Meera Hull in Montreal, Quebec. Creative design is led by Ligia Esteve in Montreal. Baiba Drimen is the project director for the show based out of Valencia, Spain. Special thanks to Wendy Sim in Singapore. And I'm Shashank Nigam, the CEO of Simplifying and your host. Please feel free to connect with me on LinkedIn.